Hi there and welcome to the final episode of Jacqueline Wilson Raised Us, the podcast for anyone who stayed up way past their bedtime reading double act under the covers, who sprinted home after school to watch the latest episode of Tracy Beaker, and traded dog-eared copies of The Girls like they were gold on the playground. Basically, if Jacqueline Wilson was your fairy godmother, this is the place to be. Let's dive headfirst into the nostalgia together. Today I am here with the wonderful Taylor-Dior Rumble. Taylor-Dior is a journalist and author and recently released her debut novel, The Situationship, which I have read and loved, by the way. And of course, she is a huge Jackie girl and she is joining us today to discuss all things perfection, ambition, and of course, Jacqueline's new novel, Picture Imperfect, which is out in bookstores now. How are you doing?
I am so excited to be here. Like, I've cleared my whole day for this, so we can chat away.
It's a big day. Like, are you emotionally ready to meet Jacqueline?
I don't think so. I feel like even after this, I'm not gonna process anything until probably the end of the week, because I have loved Jacqueline Wilson my whole life. She's literally the reason why I fell in love with reading. I fell in love with books, and the reason I wanted to become an author. Like, I knew what I wanted to do from like the age of 6 or 7 because of how much I enjoyed her books. Like, it's that simple.
Oh my god, which was your favourite book growing up? What was your first one? Do you remember your first one?
First one's the story of Tracy Beaker, I feel like, obviously. And then soon after that, I literally just read whatever I could get my hands on. So, like, Double Act, Lola Rose, Illustrated Mum, of course, The Bed and the Breakfast Star, the Girls series, Love Lessons, like, honestly, loads. I could be here like all day long listing all the books, but
we've got time. It's fine. Obviously, you mentioned Illustrated Mum.
Mm-hmm.
Today, the book is out. Well, it's been out for a week. The new sequel, the adult sequel, Picture Imperfect, which
so exciting.
We can talk about it all because the book is out in the world. Everyone, what did you think? Oh, first of all, let's talk about Illustrated Mum. What was your thoughts about it when you were a child?
Do you know what's funny? Like, at the time, obviously, because I didn't have the knowledge and vocabulary as a child, I think it was just so interesting reading about other children going through maybe the not so nice parts of life.
Yeah.
And I feel like Jacqueline Wilson really pioneered that within children's literature. And I'm not a huge expert on like children's novels, but I just feel like the consensus is that it's usually really like happy-go-lucky, like bubblegum kind of stories. And I
like
think
that description, bubblegum.
And that's not a bad thing
at
all. But that's the general vibe I get from children's books. And I guess that's the most refreshing thing about Jacqueline Wilson's books, is that if you have grown up in a background that's not quite like that, and you can't relate to all of those like really sunshine, positive experiences, it can make you feel a bit isolated. So finding her books and reading about other children that didn't necessarily, grow up in big houses and with like 2-parent households and stuff like that, it makes you feel like, oh, maybe I'm not so like weird after all. So the refreshing thing about the Illustrated Mum was that it was, at the time when I was a child, really comforting to read about, children and having a main caregiver that didn't necessarily have like all together.
I love the whisper.
But so it just made like me and like some of my friends feel a lot less like lonely, not having that like, picture perfect like kind of life and I guess family kind of background.
And now we've got an adult sequel to it. Long time coming.
Crazy.
How have you found reading it?
So again, I think what's really nice about the sequel is like, when you're a child, you put your parents on a pedestal like naturally, and you kind of think like they can do no wrong, and because they are older and they're adults, they know what they're doing and they know what decisions to make. And obviously in the Illustrated Mum, we can see that the children witness like their mum in a very like real and raw kind of way. And I think with Picture Imperfect, again, it's like when you become an adult yourself, I feel like that's when you start to see your parents as another human, as like another fellow adult, and you start, I guess, giving them more grace and seeing things from a different lens. So I think exploring that in this new adult novel is like really, really interesting. And it's just nice because like as someone who's read Jacqueline Wilson as a child, now growing up and having like the adult contemporary of a book that I really, really enjoyed, it's just so nice getting kind of like that full rounded kind of scope of these characters that I you know, grew up with.
Yeah, I feel like that thing about your parents being people, it's so interesting. I feel like I remember seeing this quote once that was like, remember, this is your mum's first time on earth too. She doesn't know what she's doing.
She's literally just a girl.
She's just yeah, and like Marigold is definitely the example of that. You know, she doesn't actually know what she's doing, and that's normal, and that's actually quite, that is the norm, and that's actually okay. Were you surprised to see where Star and Dolphin end up? Anyone who doesn't know or hasn't started the book yet, Star is now a high-powered doctor living in Scotland with her son and husband, and Dolphin is a tattoo artist living in a bedsit in her mid-30s. Marigold is still Marigold. Dolphin has to pick her up from the airport, and she's still Marigold. What, did that surprise you? Any of those three?
Not with Star.
No.
I feel like, as a like fellow like eldest daughter, I think because growing up sometimes you're often put into that parent role, or you're given that responsibility quite early on. It didn't surprise me at all that Star kind of went the straight and narrow, and basically the complete opposite of the kind of path that like Marigold has gone down, and possibly trying to build the life and the upbringing that she wished that her and her sister had. So that wasn't a shock. And then with Dolphin, I feel like in Illustrated Mum, she's always been the one to have the soft spot for Marigold. So for her to go into something that's so linked with her mum's identity, like tattooing, it seems really right. So yeah.
I was quite surprised by it. I don't know what I thought she was going to be doing, but I was just like, it does make complete sense, but it also doesn't, because I don't know, there was a bit of it was like, I thought she might go the complete opposite way and leave Marigold behind, but actually now reading back at it, I'm like, there's no way she could have left Marigold behind. She's
like always been, I feel like she's always been like a mummy's girl, and like I can definitely relate to that as well. So yeah, how she is now in Picture Imperfect, it didn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, and I feel like she's also in a stage in her life where she's a bit not 100% satisfied. She's a bit confused about where she should be. Is she doing the right thing? She's currently living in a bedsit. She likes her job, but she doesn't love it. Is that something that you related to, of that feeling like you're, you know, in your late 20s, early 30s, and you're like, what am I doing with my life?
Oh my gosh, I have an existential crisis like every other day, babe. Like, it was so relatable, and I eat up any kind of like book, film, TV show that touches on that, because it just makes you feel like less alone. And it's like, okay, cool, I'm not the only one who has no flipping idea what's going on either. Like, we're all figuring this out together. So it was very comforting to see that like Dolphin is in the same position as like all the girlies.
Growing up, what did you think your life would be like as an adult?
Annoyingly, people please don't hate me, like I've always wanted to be a writer. I didn't quite know in what kind of like specific field. I wanted to be an author like when I was a kid. Then I got older, the internet and Tumblr came, and I was like, I'm gonna be the next Anna Wintour. And then I did a bit of journalism like as I got a bit older, and then I guess because of like kind of the institutions that I was at, I really wanted to be more creative. So like back to becoming an author I went. So career-wise, I feel like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted to do. And then every other facet of life is just like, what the hell is going on, girl? Like, what is going on? But it's a happy kind of mess that, that I'm very blessed to have.
It is that thing. It's like, I thought I was going to be like married at like 25 and have like a child. And
I'm my gosh.
Like, no. And also I'm glad that didn't happen. No, nothing to anyone that does have that. That's like a lovely life.
Like, I can barely parent myself.
I'm like, how does the dishwasher work? And I think when I was reading it first with Dolphin, I was like, I went back to my childhood brain of reading her in the Illustrated Mum. I was like, oh, I can't wait till she's an adult. She's got her like life together
with the white picket fence, and the partner.
Like, she deserves that. And actually, she doesn't have that. But actually, then I have to like untrain my brain to be like, that's okay.
It is okay.
Like, that's completely fine. That's
just life.
It's just life. But I think when you care about a character, you're like, oh, I want them to have that white picket fence. But does anyone have a white picket fence?
Well, I guess like now, especially like in today's climate, we've just all got our own different versions of a white picket fence. Like for me, I just want to be happy, and I want to be able to do whatever I want, go wherever I want. I don't want to be bogged down by anybody else's like expectations or what society thinks like women should be doing at a certain like milestone. So I think it's great that we all have our own versions of a white picket fence. Like if you want to, you know, get married, have kids, do the whole shebang, perfect. If that's what makes you happy, I love that for you. And then if the complete opposite makes you happy, I also love that for you, as long as whatever you're doing isn't hurting anybody. Like, just live your best life, hon, whatever you think like that is.
With Marigold, were you surprised to hear that she's still very much not doing well? Or were you hoping maybe something had changed after that? Like when we see her at the end of Illustrated Mum, there's that like beacon of hope that maybe they're gonna get that white picket fence.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that like by the time we get an adult novel that it was gonna be different, just because like now as an adult looking back at Illustrated Mum, and it's like you just want like better for these kids, but also like you really feel it for Marigold and like the things that she goes through, and like I have tons of empathy for like her mental health as well. And it's like I just want all the girls to be happy and safe and like loving with each other. And so I was a bit saddened to see, especially like straight in the first chapter as well. But again, like that's just life, and it doesn't mean to say that like things aren't gonna work out anyway.
Obviously, you are now an adult, and
think so.
But how have any Jacqueline Wilson books stay with you as an adult? Any lessons you've taken from any characters that still stay with you that you think about sometimes?
I think definitely the story of Tracy Beaker, just because. And again, as an adult looking back, like with hindsight and stuff, it's so nice to have a heroine that's like really brash and loud and like rude, but she stands up for herself. And like I feel like Boggoth is just like burnt in every like British millennial babes. And I think Tracy Beaker is so iconic. But another thing that I love and loved about her was that, you know, she was just this young girl from like a really tough, like difficult background, but she still had these really big dreams, and no matter what everyone else said to her about these fantasies that she had, she still believed in them wholeheartedly. And that's how I often feel like trying to navigate my kind of career. I just feel like there's so many things in the world that make you feel like insecure and doubt yourself and your abilities, that you have to be like a tiny bit delusional just to like get through it and see that goal to the end. And I feel like that's the big lesson that I got from the story of Tracy Beaker, for sure.
Like that inner confidence that like she is. I was watching her, I rewatched the first episode, and I was like, this girl, she just has it. Like, she is
unflappable. Like, you can't mess with Tracy. And like, I love that about her.
I remember I was like the hay fever as well. I was like, oh my god, I've got hay fever, I've got hay fever. And should we get Jacqueline Wilson in?
Please, please. Absolutely.
Jackie, do you want to come in?
How lovely for you to come.
Right. See?
Oh, it's like musical chairs.
It is.
No.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Have you met Taylor-Dior before?
No, it's a delight to meet you though, Taylor.
It's the honour of a lifetime, honestly.
So
honestly. Like, yeah, I can't even process this moment right now. It's insane.
So you both actually have a shared Stormzy connection. Stormzy, obviously, Murky Books is your publisher.
Yes.
And Stormzy also featured the Story of Tracy Beaker theme tune in one of his songs.
I know, I was so thrilled. And I know Stormzy is really Mallory Blackman's friend, but when I saw Mallory, I did say, I've got a tiny bit of Stormzy too, because he recorded the Tracy Beaker theme tune beautifully.
And this is, even though you haven't met technically, you have written to Taylor-Dior before.
Yes. So in around 2007, when you released Jackie Daydream, me and my best friend got to come to one of your book signings, and I was determined to get my letter to you. So I think I like shoved it in your hands when I was like 11 years old. But then you wrote back to me, and I actually bought. Well, I was like just so thrilled, and it just made my year. And I actually bought the postcard.
Goodness me! And this was taken not in the house I live in now, and I think that was in the bit of the house that was a converted garage. But I've got lots of these are my books, I think, on the shelves, and it's ridiculous. But this rather nice, flashy green bolero thing. Would you believe I wore it yesterday?
You love that.
Yeah,
sustainable.
I was going to say,
it's doing well.
That.
Yeah. And look, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think a ring on every finger in those days. I'm quite restrained now. I love it that you've kept it all that time.
Thank you so much for doing what you do. Like I was saying to like my mum last night over the phone that you don't understand. Like Jacqueline is the reason why I fell in love with reading, why I fell in love with books, and why I wanted to become an author. So to now like be able to have this moment with you as an author myself, like the full circle moment of it all, it's
Ah.
absolutely insane. So I'm so grateful, and I'm so like humbled and honoured to be
You've
here.
made my day.
You made my life, Jacqueline, please. I don't know where I'd be without your books, honestly.
Do you have that quite a bit that people say you're the reason that they got into writing?
Well, it's so lovely when they do.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, my career started really nobody knowing anything about me. I did get books published, but, you know, at parties people didn't, they'd say, you know, hello, what's your name? And I'd say Jacqueline Wilson, and they'd say, what do you do? And I'd mumble embarrassed, I write children's books. And they always said, what name do you write under? Just heard it. One time I was so irritated I said Enid Blyton. but it's so then after the story of Tracy Beaker and the telly series, etc., it became much more lovely. And then children made a big fuss of me then. But now, wonderfully, it's people that are grown up that suddenly stop me and say they read this book or that book or whatever. And it means so much to me because I didn't even know about book charts for most of that time. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really have, well, I knew there was quite a bit of money coming in, but I didn't really know that they were as popular as they must have been. And, you know, what lovelier thing to find out now that there are so many people that remember reading my books.
Of course, you raised us.
Yes.
Well, I feel, I mean, my daughter, last year when Think Again came out, there were wonderful merchandising with baseball caps and pink t-shirts and tote bags with Jacqueline Wilson Raised Me, and I got several. And then when next I met my daughter, because you know she lives in very different parts, but we meet up in London frequently. And she does come home sometimes. And I made her, she's not a t-shirt girl, but put this t-shirt on her and took a photo because I said, you're the only person that can genuinely say Jacqueline Wilson Raised Me.
Oh, you not only raised your daughter, but you also raised a whole generation of us. And we have a few of them to send you have sent you some messages.
Oh, right.
Hi, I'm Coco, and I want to talk about the Jacqueline Wilson series that defined my childhood and made me the adult I am today, and that obviously is the girl series. Ellie, Magda, and Nadine were my best friends. They taught me about love, about loss, about grief, about understanding who I am, and now getting to meet them again as adults, I'm just thinking, these are my childhood friends, and I'm just getting to see them again after so long, and I've never been happier, and that's the feeling that Jacqueline Wilson books leaves with me.
Is that the famous Coco that does various different things on social media?
She's very amazing. Popular. She's so lovely as well.
She really is. Well, I am so proud. She said, "Thank you very much, Coco."
And then we have another one.
Growing up, Jacqueline Wilson was a huge part of my life, and I think her books have definitely shaped who I am today and are the reason why I love reading so much. My favourite books of Jacqueline Wilson probably are Lola Rose, Secrets and the Girls series. Her writing is still so important to me today, and I think that's because her books fill me with so much nostalgia. They give me a warm glow and take me back to a certain place and time in my life.
Oh, what a lovely thing to say. And Lola Rose is quite a complex book because it deals with not one but two really quite serious issues, and it's very, very difficult to write for children and to not worry them. And it started off, the whole idea, a mum wrote to me and said she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer and she wanted to find a way of telling her girls to be truthful, not to frighten them, but mostly people wonderfully nowadays make a full recovery, but you can't actually say, I promise, your mum will be fine, because you can't do that. So that was my attempt. And in that book, there's a lovely character, one of my favourite characters, called Auntie Barbara. I wish I had an Auntie Barbara, because she comes along to these poor kids who are having a difficult time. Mum's still alive, but having a difficult time. And she's kindness itself. And she looks after them. And she gives them chocolate treats and things. And you just know that whatever happens to this family, and hopefully it all works out well for them, because they've had other things to deal with too, running away from a slightly scary dad, Auntie Barbara is there for them. And I think, that's the message of a lot of my books, is that there is always somebody there for you. Absolutely. Or maybe you have to turn into an Auntie Barbara yourself and look after yourself. But I was feeling slightly worried about that book, because I often write about difficult subjects, but you can only go so far in a children's book. Maybe you can go a little further with adult books. I'm finding that out now.
And then we have one more for you.
Jojo Silva here, and if I had to pick my favourite Jacqueline Wilson book, it's got to be The Illustrated Mum. I think one of the reasons it stands out to me is that in true Jacqueline Wilson manner, she reminds us that families are messy, complex, imperfect, and sometimes you need that reminder when you're making your own way in the world. I also remember feeling so grown up and so mature when I was reading it, because Jacqueline Wilson deals so well with the tricky, difficult, complex themes. I also remember that the main character being a mum and absolutely covered in tattoos, to me at the time was the coolest thing in the world. So it has to be The Illustrated Mum for me.
Oh, I'm so glad Jojo chose that, because I think, obviously I have a soft spot for Tracy Beaker, because it was really the start of me becoming quite well known. And I like Hetty Feather because it was the first time I did a Victorian book, and I love doing that. But I think my overall favourite has to be The Illustrated Mum. And I took it all quite seriously, because having a mum who's got bipolar disorder, I wanted to show that if you're a child, you don't think like that. You think, that's my mum. I love my mum. I think she's wonderful. It's so exciting when she makes us lots of cakes and things, but it's so scary if she just stays in bed all day and doesn't want to talk to us. And that is what I wanted to put across, what it's like to be a child and have a parent who's got a serious mental illness that nobody else is around to help you deal with it. So, and I'm ever so grateful to my daughter, because when we were young, well, she was very young, I was much younger than I am now, obviously, we had a trip together, just us, to New York. And that was really exciting for us. And we'd had a gorgeous day shopping and going to art galleries. And then we were sitting in Central Park, and it's the most glorious place for people watching. And so he's sitting there having a nice lolly or something, and this amazing woman, she didn't have bright red hair, but she had very distinctive long hair, came along, very, very gorgeous looking, but tattoos all over her, very decorative ones. And in those days, not a lot of women had loads of tattoos. Nowadays, many, many women do. But there she was. And then she had two girls behind her, and they were wearing their mum's clothes, dressing up and trying to walk in her high heels. And they walked past. And then Emma sort of looked at me, and I'd been looking after them, and she said, they look like characters in a Jacqueline Wilson book. I bet you write about them. And I did. So thank you, Emma. And the brand new book, Picture Imperfect, which is about what happens all the many years later to those three characters, Dolphin, Star, and their mum, Marigold, is dedicated to Emma, because I'm just so grateful. It possibly wouldn't have happened if she hadn't interrupted then.
And do you have any tattoos of your own?
Well, when The Illustrated Mum came out, I thought this would look really, really cool. And I thought about it long and hard, but couldn't decide what sort of thing I would have. And was a little bit, I don't know, in that episode of Friends, you remember that one of them decides to have a tattoo and then chickens out. Just has a dot. Yeah. I thought I might be that sort of person. So I didn't have a proper tattoo, but I knew this would crop up as a question. And so I wore a long sleeve blouse, whatever event I was doing. And then some kid in the audience would stand up grinning and say, have you got any tattoos, Jacqueline? And I would say, yes, I have it, actually. And we're nudging each other. And then I'd slowly roll up my sleeves. And what I had done, I'd been to some summer fete or something where people were doing henna tattoos. Oh. So I had my arms hennaed up to my elbows. They looked very impressive, but after a few weeks, henna fades completely. Yeah. So I could, shine with my tattoos, but also feel this is not permanent. I have been discussing maybe doing a tattoo sometime to commemorate Picture Imperfect, but don't bank on it.
I was going to say, I think can we get a tattoo artist in here today?
Like live.
Break the internet. So when this comes out, Picture Imperfect will be out and available in stores for everyone. How are you feeling about it coming out?
Both excited and anxious.
Yeah.
I think I always feel like that.
Really?
I very much hope people will like it. But on the other hand, I know quite a lot of people have particularly liked The Illustrated Mum, and people have their own ideas about what they would like to happen. And I think people know my books well enough to know that it isn't going to be all roses and charm and delight, and there will be some sad things happen, but also some funny things and some gorgeous things. But it's hard when people have got expectations. I very much hope people aren't disappointed. I have asked one or two people who've read the book and said, well, what do you think might happen to them? So far, they have had interesting ideas. None of them are right. But so I hope it's got a bit of a surprise too. Can't wait to see what the reaction is.
Well, as someone who has read the whole thing and raced through it, we were just talking earlier, there were lots of things we did expect and lots of things we didn't expect. And I think the one thing for me that I really took away was that because Dolphin and Star had such a difficult childhood, a sort of childish part of me was like, oh, they both have these amazing lives with the white picket fences, and actually neither of them actually do.
No, and I wanted really to think long and hard about the impact of having such an exotic but unreliable mum when they're young. And I don't think you necessarily have to be defined by your childhood, but I think they are. And in some ways, Star looks now as if she's got everything she could ever wish for.
Yeah.
And in some ways she does, but I think people reading the book will find it's not quite as picture perfect as it would initially be. And Star had the difficult time of actually mothering Dolphin, but she's got that little bit inside her that actually helps her put herself first. I mean, in The Illustrated Mum, when she finds out who her father is, she does go off with him for a bit. And so she has got the ability to put herself first sometimes. I'm not judging her at all. And she's a very bright girl in the book. So I think, the career she's chosen, the lifestyle she's got, I would imagine that. Whereas for Dolphin, I think she's got more involved with her mum and been so worried about her. And I'm not sure that feeling actually goes away when you're an adult. And she's got caught up in her own life where she's not really living the life she would have wanted. And she's very artistic, but she actually works in a tattoo studio. And it's fulfilling in a way. She loves making up designs, but you kind of feel, well, I hope you feel reading the book that she's got more to her than that. But she has a big problem in that she's very dyslexic. And dyslexia is a very complex thing. It's nothing to do with one's intellect. And I've spoken to various people who are severely dyslexic, and actually, although they often are keen readers eventually, but read more slowly than other people. But they develop wonderful strategies for getting around this thing and kind of problem solving in a different way. So I thought, well, don't worry, Dolphin, I'm going to find ways for you to fulfill yourself. And then also when the book starts quite dramatically.
Yeah.
And I like to stop
Straight in.
bang. But also her love life hasn't been successful so far. And then suddenly it's like the bus situation. She has no guys in her life. And then suddenly, oh, 2. One's the safe, steady, protective kind. The other one's the sexy bad boy. And I hope people reading it think, what's she going to do? Is she going to choose this one or that one? And the ending, I should keep quiet about in case, if people are just starting to read the book, I haven't even known about it and just happen to be watching this, I want to keep them guessing too.
I know the ending and I really want to talk about it. Well, we will talk about it later. Marigold as well, we were saying earlier, it's a part of like me, especially I was like, oh, maybe there's a part at the end where you're like, oh, she's going to be fine. And like at the end of Illustrated Mum, was that a hard decision to show that nothing has really changed? Or was there a part of you that was tempted to be like, no, she's fine now?
I would love her to be really fine. And I think it depends what sort of bipolar disorder you have, and whether you have it quite mildly or whether you are stuck with it and you're always going to have highs and lows. So I wanted to be honest about it, but also to show some hope, some possibilities, some perhaps new way of helping sort things out. I read a very interesting long book for people studying medicine about bipolar disorder with different case histories, and eventually I found it really quite positive, and I've read quite a lot into it. And I did initially go into a big bookshop in London and say, have you got anything about bipolar disorder? And this assistant looked at me sorrowfully and clearly thought I'd just been diagnosed with it, and said, well, come with me and look, there's self-help shelves there and everything. I said, no, I really want something really quite serious. And this was a very useful thing, because whenever I don't know anything, I don't necessarily Google. I just have to find a book about it and immerse myself in it. And I have known people with bipolar disorder and see the ways it affects them. And sometimes it's quite a sad story. Other times are people that have learnt to live with the condition and really a success story. So it depends, like everything else.
You mentioned not judging Star. When you're both writing, how difficult is it to not judge a character that you're writing?
Me personally, I kind of like detach in a way, just because I want to try and get the full scope of who they are and why they make the decisions that they do. So for the situationship, there is a love triangle in that book as well. And when it came to kind of writing why the men were behaving the way they were, in terms of keeping our main character in that grey area and kind of breadcrumbing her like bits of affection so she could still be like reeled in, I kind of had to think of it from a guy's perspective, and especially when it comes to like dating and getting so stuck on defining what we are and the specific labels that we put on things, I had to like put myself in the shoes of a guy that I would probably deem as like a red flag, but just kind of think, okay, why would he like say this to her, or why would he want to keep it like cool and casual? Like, what's his perspective? So yeah, I think to get a full rounded character, I try and like detach, and I try to keep neutral, even though I do have favorites. I love them all equally. So Yeah,
I think that's a true novelist way of looking at things. I think too, people often look at books as self-help books and want the main character to be always making a good choice for them and always to do something that we would all approve of. Whereas sometimes in real life, no matter who it is, sometimes you can make stupid decisions or kid yourself you're okay when you're not. And so it's difficult. I want to write something where at the end people think, yeah, I get it. That's the right thing for you. But not in a terribly unbelievable way. In that, in real life, I think very few people, when they're young, they've got a lot of potential, but very few people actually become amazing rock stars or fantastic novelists or artists or influencers. So you've got to sort of give people possibilities, but keep them the way you think they would develop.
That kind of leads me on quite nicely to the next question, which is, do both of you believe perfection is possible?
No, not. I mean, I like stupidly try to strive for it, and then I just end up like getting like really burnt out and probably quite unkind to myself sometimes, if I'm being completely honest, especially as like an author that's trying to work on their second novel, and which is different now because there's loads of expectations that I didn't consider when I was just like writing away in anonymity and just like having loads of fun with it. Whereas now I feel like I don't want to let people down. I do want to give readers kind of what they expect of me, but at the same time I just want to do my own thing. So I don't think perfection exists unless, I don't know, like maybe you're Beyonce. That's a different goddess level that us mere humans can't comprehend. But yeah, I don't think it exists. I'm trying to not strive for that. So Miss Jacqueline Wilson, if you have any advice, please.
You are looking at a woman that really, really still childishly, I want to make me perfect and I can't. I make resolutions, private ones, each year about, I am not going to get anxious about this. I'm not going to get fussed about this. I'm just going to sail through. And, you know, that night I can't sleep for worrying about something. And with my books, I hate to break it to you, Taylor, it gets harder the more you write. And I used to have a thing with my daughter in that I didn't realise this until she gently pointed it out to me, because I'd phone her up and say, oh God, I don't know what to do, Emma. I am stuck in the middle and I don't think this is going to work at all, this book, because, you know, I just get that awful dreadful feeling. What do you think I should do? And she always very gently and fondly laughs and said, every single book you write at some stage, generally the middle, you phone me up and say, you've got some real crisis, and what's happened, it always comes out okay. My lovely partner Trish, I don't share my books with her because she thinks the world of me. She's proud of what I do, but she thinks if I give her an unpublished book, just, you know, the manuscript, or let her read on the computer, and I say, tell me what you think about it. Now, my daughter, if I say, tell me honestly, she knows, don't necessarily be ultra honest. Whereas Trish thinks, must you have all this swearing there? Or, do you think she'd really say that? And you see, with an editor, I am very reasonable. I think my publishers will say so. I listen to suggestions. Nearly all of them I think over very carefully, and most of them I agree with. With my partner, I say, what on earth makes you think that?
I'm exactly the same. I'm like, excuse me, who are you to question like what's going on? Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I mean, this is the awful thing, in that there is no way of being a good partner and saying what you truthfully think. Because I'm sure if it was the other way round, I would be forever questioning, why have you done that bit? So, no, I think you have to have your professional world and the professional people. And then when the book is actually published, it's too late to do anything.
Yeah.
And so then you can hand it over. And then actually she gets out of editorial mode then and just says, oh, yeah, this is good. I like this. Hopefully she'll do it again next time round.
Dolphin is not the only child in your books that sort of has this massive vision for what their life's going to be. You know, we've also got Tracy Beaker, the bed and breakfast star, Ruby in Double Act, Mandy and Tanya in Bad Girls. It's adult life doesn't become that though for any of us, unfortunately, which is...
It doesn't, although actually I'm lucky because what I wanted to be was a writer and I've actually managed it, which is great, really fantastic. I mean, Tracy wants to be a writer herself, and certainly in the television series she does actually get a book published, but it's not a success. But some of the others, I mean, Ruby in Double Act does become an actress and is good at acting.
Yeah.
So I think she would achieve her ambitions. Tanya, I think her biggest ambition would be to get back in touch with the sister that was adopted and she wasn't, because she meant so much to her. I think, Tanya, you're wasting your time there, dear, sadly. But who knows? And Mandy, her friend, don't know what Mandy will be like. Well, perhaps I've got a slight suspicion. We'll have to wait and see what happens.
Oh, exciting.
And there was somebody else that you mentioned.
Bed and breakfast star.
Oh, the bed and breakfast star. That's Elsa.
Yes.
And she wants to be a comedian. Oh. And I think she could make it. Not a big comedian on the telly and with huge stage shows. You know, going around the pubs, trying hard to make people laugh. And I think she'd be good at that. But I think she might, because she didn't have the most wonderful domestic life with her mum and stepdad, and she's a caring girl and a competent girl. I think maybe she'd be a social worker or work with foster children, something like that. I think I think she'll have a happy life. She's a chirpy character and doesn't let things let her down, so that yeah, I think she's okay. She's a good example, I think, of how you can make the best of whatever situation. And I do actually think trying to find the funny side of things is a good way. I mean, not a real tragedy, obviously, but if you're really feeling your life sucks a bit, it's good to be able to make a joke or two about it. And it's a way of coping.
Yeah, I think even though in the darkest moments a little bit of hilarity doesn't hurt. Obviously, not to be insensitive, but there is a way.
If you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yes.
Yeah, and I also think it's quite nice that you said like some of those dreams those children have were massive to be an actress, but then some of them are to find a family member. And I think that's the nice thing about your novels, is like all our dreams are different, and they're all valid, and that again comes through in Picture Perfect, which is so nice. That Dolphin's dreams are much different to Star's. And, you know, Star wants everything. And what Dolphin wants actually a lot smaller. But that doesn't make it any different.
I think, I mean, like with the girls in Think Again, I think some people daydream that they would all become famous in their own right and successful and have fantastic love lives and all the rest of it. But that wouldn't really be realistic. And I think the thing about my children's books, I've always tried to make them realistic. So with adult books, I mean, I don't know, maybe in the future, you know, I might be able to make one of my girls have the most amazing career and be ultra successful. But mostly they'll jog along and make the best of things, but actually have fun things and exciting things happen to them as well.
And why did you pick this title, and like why was that something you wanted to kind of explore? I mean, I don't know if you picked the title or the publishers picked the title.
Well, wonderfully, I have to say that my brilliant editor Thorne came up with the title. I think it was a joint decision. titles are so difficult,
Mm-hmm.
but it sums everything up completely.
Perfectly.
And also, I think it's you were saying before, nobody has a perfect life.
No.
And even, I always remember me going into a school and my marriage had just broken up, and then the boiler, the gas boiler, suddenly became very hot, dangerous, and I had to try and switch it off, and I didn't know how to do it, and then I had to get on a train to get to a school. The train was late. It was a really trying day. And then when I got there, I managed to give the talks okay, because I'm sort of, the show must go on. And then the kids afterwards, when they're having their book signed, one little girl said, "Oh, I so envy you. You have such a perfect life." And I thought, "Oh, darling, if only you knew." I'm falling to bits or being blown up or whatever. So, I mean, even I'm sure even Beyonce has a bad day occasionally because life's like that. But I think the trick is simply to try your hardest to get through whatever. And oh dear, I sound like one of those gloopy birthday cards or something. But pat your dog, go out for a walk and look at some wildflowers or something. And actually, there are perfect moments. And, sometimes those little moments add up to, when you think back towards the end of your life, the major events, you can remember them and they're quite good. But it's often the little moments or just being cozy with someone, and then if you're worried about something, they hold your hand, or what. These are what's important. And so even the most imperfect life has something to go for.
I love that. You've both, a bit of a subject change, but you've both written love triangles. How is it fun? Is it what is the situation? Like, do you have a favourite that you want them to be with?
Oh, I love a love triangle. I love watching it. I love reading it. For the situationship, I didn't have a favourite because they were both terrible. They were both unhealthy, and I didn't want Tia, the main character in my novel, to end up with either of them. And the book's been out for a while, so it's not much of a spoiler, but that was the whole point of the story, because situationships are these vague, ambiguous, grey things, and in reality it doesn't often ever really end up in a really defined, wholesome, lovely relationship. And I didn't want that in the book either. I wanted what really happens within the situationship. So I didn't have a favourite. And I've always loved, in Sex and the City, you had Carrie, Aiden and Big, and I loved the idea of people being on certain teams, Team Aiden or Team Big, and I think I wanted that kind of vibe in the situationship as well, even though secretly I wanted nothing to do with them for my girl Tia. So yeah.
I felt with Dolphin, I mean, she's got the safe, kind man who will look after her, although does she really need looking after her now? And she's got the bad boy guy who she knows is not a good choice, but he's sexy and he's charming, and she's very attracted to him. So as I was writing, I could see the virtues in one, but also the bits that didn't seem to be quite right for her. And then I saw the sexy bad guy, and I thought, no wonder she's attracted to him, but is he quite right? And in the book, she re-meets Ollie, Ollie, I should call him. That was his mean nickname when they were at school together in the Illustrated Mum. And he's in a lovely, gentle, gay relationship, and they are the happy ever after guys. But she thinks, is there much passion in their lives? Maybe they don't want passion, they just want companionship and that sort of lovely acceptance and all the rest of it. There's so many different ways of living your life. And so as I was writing the book, I hadn't actually made up my mind precisely what's going to happen to her. And then with the rewrite, I suddenly, with a little help from the wondrous Thorn, actually thought, yeah, you're prodding me in this direction, aren't you? She doesn't do that exactly. She's just suggesting things. And I thought, aha. And I hope when people get to the end of the book, they'll think, yep, that's it.
As someone who has read it, yes. I'm just really curious to know this from both of you. So you said you didn't know the end before you started it. When you're both planning a book, how much do you plan? And how do you have like a timeline of like what each chapter is going to be, or how does it work?
Yeah, I'm afraid I am a planner. I try to do the whole like, let's just see where the writing takes me. No, babes. I like a plan. I like a bit of organization. Yeah. So for the situationship, I had the ending before I really knew like what was going on, and then I thought, okay, I know exactly where I want her to be. How do I get her to this point in the most kind of fun, sexy, dramatic way as possible? And what things does she have to go through to then become this like really self-assured like young woman in this part? So that was my process for the situationship. For this next book, I feel like, because I've done it now, I feel like I should be more like prepared and raring to go and ready, and I have planned it out, but I don't know, it's not going to plan. And I think now that's why I'm like freaking out a bit, because it's like I have each chapter like, why is this not flowing? So maybe I am going to turn into a pantser for like this for this second book. I have no idea. How about yourself?
I have a vague plan. I know, right, I want to write about this character and she's going to have this sort of problem in her life, or this person is going to be what she doesn't want or maybe does want. Who knows? But I've basically, I start writing quite quickly, and then I sort of live in it when I'm standing in the queue in Morrison's, or when I'm dealing with the dog. You know, dogs have no inhibitions. In the worst possible place, they think, oh, I need to go. Oh, I've gone. And you have to sort of style it out somehow. Also, in my head, I am thinking, what's the next book going to be? I know. And I think my best time to actually invent things is very early in the morning. And so as soon as I'm awake, I will think about, now, where was I? Ah, yes, what's going to happen next? And then by the time, you know, the animals are walked and dealt with, then cup of coffee, back in bed, and that's when I write. And I find it quite productive, because it's a bit like I'm still a little bit in that dream world where you don't make up your dreams, they run with you. And so that's where I like to write. But sometimes it's annoying because you can get carried away, and then by chapter 9 you think, hang on, that wouldn't work. And then you've got to go back, which is very boring and annoying. But mostly I don't have post-it notes. I don't have sort of chapter plans or anything, because I've written so much. I think I would find it, by the time I'd done all that, I would have kind of lost interest in it, in that I like to keep surprising myself. And hopefully, often it's good surprises, not what are you thinking of? So I sort of fly by the seat of my pants, basically.
Was your process the same early on in your career?
Early on in my career, it was the bane of my life, because publishers don't want to take a complete punt on you, and they've got many other authors who might be simultaneously having the same idea as you. You had to write quite comprehensive précis of what you wanted to do, and I would do that obediently, but I found it so difficult. And because I have a lot of conversation in my books, I have a lot of thoughts. That's the bit I like doing. But how do you think now? She's there, but she has to get to there, and how is she going to meet them? That is the boring bit. And then when I've done all that, I feel, well, I've sorted it all out now. Nothing more to do. But I had to do that. I understood that. And then eventually, post Tracy Beaker, they didn't demand Tracy, which was lovely.
Do whatever you like.
I think with the adult books, I just say a little bit about what it's going to be like, and hopefully, I haven't let people down yet, but you never know. Yeah. That is the other thing. I don't think anybody is ever utterly secure in being a writer, even if you've written heaps and heaps of books. There's always that anxiety. And when I submit my books simultaneously to my agent and my editor, and they're both reasonably quick, in fact very quick, and yet basically if they haven't got back to me within 24 hours, I agonize and think they don't like it and they don't know how to tell me. And then I try and put it out of my mind, but I can't. And then it's always such a relief when one or t'other will phone up about it, and then they're very sensible. They say the nice things first.
Yes.
But you wait for the but. And then, it's good for you to sort of have not an entire rewrite, but a different way of doing things the second time round. Or third time, whichever.
Now you've just given us some excellent writing advice. We've now got some agony aunt questions for you to give all kinds of advice. So for both of you as well to give advice. So are you ready for the first one?
Hey Jacqueline, my name is Charlotte. I'm 28 and I live and work in London. I've been a big fan of your books ever since I was a kid, especially The Lottery Project, because we shared a name and I liked imagining it was about me. I wanted to ask you about longevity in your career, because you've had such a long, successful career, and I wanted to know how you stayed motivated. I'm still in the relatively early stages of my career, and I've got a lot of years ahead of me, and sometimes that can feel quite daunting and like a big hill to climb. So I was wondering if you had any advice on that. Thank you very much.
Oh, Charlotte, that's such an interesting question. I feel my family and friends would perhaps wish I wasn't so motivated. They say, when are you ever just going to sit down, read other people's books, take your dog for a walk, enjoy the countryside? I just can't imagine wanting to do anything else but write. I think you just have to be true to yourself and write what you want, but you also have to be aware life changes, people's needs change, and so as well as expressing your own artistic self, you've got to be a little bit canny and see what's going on, what's popular, and so it's not necessarily I want to change my style of writing, but for instance, the last couple of books have been for adults rather than children. I still want to write for children, but I think you've got to look at new opportunities as well as seeing how could my style fit in with that. So I think, Charlotte, if you're enjoying what you're doing, then keep at it, but try to find different ways of doing it to motivate yourself, because it's interesting if you do something different but sticking to the same major career change or whatever, if that's possible.
Yeah, because obviously Dolphin sticks within the same area, but
She
he
does.
does. There's a
She
change,
finds a new way,
which is so exciting. When I read that, I was like, oh my god, that makes so much sense for her. And it's just such a nice bit. Have you got any advice? Career longevity?
I mean, I'm at the start of my career, but I guess everything you want is on the other side of fear, I feel like. And I think just following whatever it is that excites you and makes you feel alive. And I think Charlotte said she was like 28, so like we're a similar age. And even though I know for a fact I want to be a storyteller forever, I also know that like life is like big and bountiful, and there's so many things and so many things to do, so many places to see, so many people to meet. So I'm not going to like limit myself, and all I want to do is just follow whatever it is that it excites me, and hopefully that would lead to a like long fulfilling career. I think that's the most important thing for me. I always want to feel fulfilled. And so I think, especially at this age that we're at now, we have that pressure where it feels like we're supposed to have everything together, but it's fine if we don't.
Yeah.
It's fine if we don't have this solid plan that we stick to. So I think just pushing your fears aside and going for whatever it is that makes your heart race, I feel like that feels like a good strategy.
I love that. And
That's a good slogan.
yeah. And I feel also as like women as well, if you want to have children, like there's that biological clock pressure, which then
That's
makes you
the difficult one, isn't
yeah, and then makes you feel like, okay, well, I've got to get everything done by this point, because what if that then becomes like part of my life, and that is another career not ending, but like it makes it so much more tricky for us as women to have to navigate that. Right, next one.
Hi, my name is Emily, and I would love to ask Queen Jacqueline Wilson a question. And the question is this: I am an adult, I'm almost 30, and I can't read any books but Jacqueline Wilson books. I've tried to read the likes of Patrick Hamilton, Charles Dickens, but honestly, The Illustrated Mum, The Lottie Project, Clean Break, The Dare Game, Story of Tracy Beakett, it's spoilt me for life. Do you have any advice on how to read adult books? Thanks, Jackie.
Well, darling, you've actually been very sweet asking something where I've just written my second adult book. So
Good timing.
So if you really want to stick to my books, you know, there are 2 out there, and hopefully there will be more. However, I do like Charles Dickens. I adore Charles Dickens. But genius though he is, I wouldn't say that nowadays you just pick him up when you're half asleep and read Great Expectations or David Copperfield, because you've got to concentrate.
You've got to be awake. Like you it's not a before bed book, because the bed, like, they're the ones that send you to sleep. And Charles Dickens, love him, but
Yes.
he will send you to sleep.
I mean, I think there are lots of fantastic books out there. I mean, I'm a fan of Anne Tyler, and I think she is quite easy to read, and there's a lot of books out there, way more than 30 books, and she writes about ordinary families, but they're a little bit odd and quirky, and I love her books. And I did mention David Nicholls before. David Nicholls has got a foot in the literary novel and a foot in the popular novel. He writes like an angel, but he's so easy to read. You just glide through. So, yeah, I'm a big fangirl of his. So it's just finding the adult books that sit in that kind of a domestic story, but with slight quirkiness of the characters that you glide through, but written in a clunky way. They are there. But I'm very touched that you like reading my books.
Taylor, do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, well, after you finish Picture Imperfect, then nothing gets me out of a reading slump than just devouring something like really messy and chaotic. So try maybe Googling like messy book characters, or just like stuff where it's like super salacious. Like I just want to get hooked straight away kind of thing. So like the books that come to mind for me are You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. The first chapter is insane. You'll be hooked straight away. I also really enjoyed Yellowface, because I just love
I love that.
Like the gossipy nature of like, I guess, the publishing industry, in the sense that like it's lifting the veil on something that we don't quite know a lot about if you're not in the industry already. I really enjoyed Yellowface. Another book that I loved is Luster, and again we have like a messy kind of main female character, and I just love reading about like messy women in fiction, because I feel like we're not afforded to be messy in real life. So anytime I get to see that in a book, like I just eat that up. And I also think joining a book club might be like really great as well. So like Casual Readers Club is a really cool book club that read like a varied like kind of titles in different kinds of genres. So that might, you know, having to read the book with other people and discuss it at some point, that might be a good way to kick off that reading journey as well.
Yeah, hold yourself accountable by having someone else. And we have our last agony aunt of the series.
Hi, Jacqueline. A question that I have for you is, I just started this new job. I was looking for a job for a while, I think around like 6 months. I just graduated university, and the job I have now, I like. My coworkers are really nice. It's in person, which I wanted, but the actual work I'm doing is not something I'm interested in at all. I don't know if this is something that you're supposed to experience in your early 20s, doing stuff that you don't like just to make money and have a job, but I think I really want to be a designer or an artist. And in this economy, it seems like it's just not really going to work out. I was wondering if there's any advice you have for me, if I should stay in this job for a few years and see if, I don't know, the economy turns around, I can do anything else, or what my next steps could be to pursuing maybe becoming a designer. Thank you so much.
Right, this is a tricky one, because you could think, right, this is what I want to do, I'm going to go for it. Mm-hmm. And yet I would say, think about your ideas for being a designer. Stay with the job maybe another 6 months, because if you've got nice colleagues and it's all working out, but it's also boring, and see if there's some kind of compromise or some way of making sure you've got a salary coming in. I mean, I have to say, when I always wanted to be a writer, I started writing on a magazine when I was only 17, in the wonderful days when you could do that. And then until the magical story of Tracy Beaker was written, which was certainly not my first few books, I years before that started off a whole lovely popular session. To make money, I wrote magazine stories, and I also wrote, when I say confession magazines, people also think I mean really some racy, sexy stuff. No, they weren't. But I used to write 2 magazine stories a week for Loving and for Love Affair and various other magazines. The joy of them was they were all first-person stories, which I naturally like writing in. Your name doesn't appear because they're meant to be, though everybody knows they're fiction, but everybody, it tries to be convinced it's some woman with a big problem. It's the sort of thing I like to write. You couldn't be too literary, and any passage of description or long thoughtful bit would be slashed out immediately. But they made me a lot of money, so that I would, for quite a few years, I would be writing one of these in the morning after taking my daughter to school, say, and then in the afternoon I would be trying to write a bit of what I wanted to write, which would be a children's book, and which gradually were being published, but really not making any impact at all. So I think you need a way to make money while you're actually dipping a toe in something. There might be some halfway bit towards doing some kind of design that you maybe don't really want to do, but it might actually give you a foot in somewhere. So basically, I'm saying this boring thing, compromise. And then eventually, if you're lucky, your dreams will come true, your designing talent will be recognised, and then you can think, this is wonderful. So fingers crossed for you. What would you say, Taylor?
I completely agree. And I think it's all about taking calculated risks. And that's something I can definitely identify with, because like when I was working as a journalist, my last few years I really wasn't enjoying it because I didn't feel like I could be creative enough. And I was in my early 20s, and again, I just thought I feel too young to be bogged down by a job. So I really do empathize with those feelings. But luckily, because I was still living at home, it wouldn't be the end of the world if I suddenly didn't bring in like a paycheck like next month, because, you know, it's my mum. So there was that cushion, and I guess, again, it was a little bit risky in the sense that what if I don't get like another like journalist role again, but that's what I wanted to do in order to like kind of start writing my book, and it did pay off eventually, but it was very, very tough. But I think Jacqueline is right, like in the sense, while you're still at this role, try and stick it out for as long as possible, and then, you know, maybe after work or over the weekend, look into ways maybe you can like freelance as a designer, or like, I'm not kind of sure what kind of designer you are, but you know, you could search for clients like after work or on your lunch break, over the weekend, like try and get some work commissioned. And then I assume that, you know, once you've built kind of a big client list, then you can make that jump and say goodbye to that job. So yeah.
Well, before we wrap up, do you have any more questions that you would like Jacqueline's opinion on?
Oh, many, but I'm writing my second book, and I love the idea. I love the characters. I want to see it through. But I just don't know what it is. Like, the self-doubt is just like, it just has me in a chokehold, and I'm not sure why. So I guess my question to you is, have you ever felt that way? And then if so, how did you combat it? Or how would you advise me to combat all those like anxieties?
I've written, I would say, about 120 books. And apart from the very little beginning to read books, I have had self-doubt every single one of them. And I don't reread what I've already written. I just carry on and think, get to the end. And then when you've got to the end, wait a few days and then read it through carefully, and I'm pretty certain you will find that, yeah, it's better than you thought. Yeah, might be a passage that you think, no, that won't do, or why did I have that character do that? But you can fix it. But you've got something to work with. And I just feel, if you don't feel like writing, if you can't work out what happens immediately next, and that's your sticking point, but you have an idea what might happen a week later or whatever, well, you know, this is where I say modern technology is great, but this is great about a computer. You can just leave a bit of space for it and then go back and slot it all in after you've written the next bit. And then maybe leave a bit again. Get to the end. And then just look at it. This is the creative bit. You write and write and write and write, and don't think, is this good, is this bad? Just get lost in the story and get there. Then after a little break, you've given your mind time. Now you're the severe critic, and you go through it and you think, nah, waffle there. And you just wanted to get a certain number of words there, so you're just stretching it out. And or no, would they really do that? And it's, can't say it's enjoyable, but there's that sort of a different pleasure in sorting it out. And like when you tidy your cupboard, and to start with, you look at it, should I throw that out? Should that go to a charity shop? But then when you do it all patiently, I don't do it very often at all, but then you get that feeling of peace when you've done it to the best of your ability.
Absolutely.
So go with the flow.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Really needed that, guys.
I feel like I needed that. I'm not even writing a book. So before we finish, you know, we mentioned the caps earlier on. I have your own one for you.
So much. Oh my gosh.
I love that. As soon as we give them to anyone, they put them on straight away.
Wow. Because it's absolutely true.
It's
absolutely true.
It really suits you. It really does.
Oh, I just love them so
It's
much.
honestly the best day of my career. Like, I'm not even joking. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure chatting to you and talking about everything about Picture Imperfect.
Well, I'm so grateful to both of you, because you've guided us through things beautifully.
Thank you.
And you have just been a total star, Taylor. So thank you both very much indeed.
And if you want to be in with a chance of winning one of these caps, head to Club Cosmo in the comments below, where we have a number of them to give away. And Picture Imperfect is out in all good bookstores now. So go and grab your copy. You're going to love it just as much as we do. Thank you so much for listening to the Jacqueline Wilson Raised Us podcast. This has been made in collaboration with Penguin Books and Cosmopolitan UK. This series was hosted by me, Lydia Venn, produced by Hannah Twigg, and coordinated by Hannah Winter. It was recorded by Megan Beattie, and our designer was Alex Hambis. Special thanks to Becky Shaw and Nina Lewis, as well as Jacqueline Wilson herself and all our guests.